Your sales pitch is too soft, Ethan told me, brushing me off as security came to gather my things. It was early Monday, not even opening time yet. Name's Jake Morgan. I'm 42. I used to be the senior sales director at Morgan Auto, a place my dad built from the ground up in San Francisco. 16 years of my life were spent running that place, training every sales rep, shaking hands with every customer who stepped in, hitting every sales goal, and never once stirring up trouble. Ethan, my little brother by 4 years, stood behind what used to be our dad's desk. He'd been in charge for all of 3 days, and already the office looked nothing like it used to. Dad's old fishing photos? Gone. The familiar leather chair? Swapped out for something that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie. Times are different now, Jake. Dad's ways don't cut it anymore. We need numbers, not friendships. I didn't argue. There wasn't any point. I just stood there and watched Mike from security, same guy whose daughter I helped get her first car last summer, awkwardly box up my stuff. You'll get 2 months severance, Ethan added, eyes glued to his computer screen. Professional courtesy. Professional courtesy. From my own brother. In the very business our dad started from scratch. I nodded at Mike, took the box, and walked straight out the front doors. 16 years, all wrapped up in a 15-minute meeting. Out in the parking lot, I set the box on my truck's hood and turned to look at the dealership sign, Morgan Auto. Name for both of us, but now it was just him. My phone buzzed. Text from Abigail at Sigma Motors. Meeting still good for 2 p.m.? I smiled for the first time that morning. Definitely, I typed back. Just cleared my whole schedule. 3 days earlier, I'd signed on with Sigma Motors to become their regional distributor for the Western Territory. They'd reached out to me directly, impressed by how I'd built up the dealership's rep over the years. The deal was in motion. Papers filed. Ethan didn't know. Nobody at Morgan Auto did. Dad was off the grid, fly fishing up in Montana. I got in the truck, pulled out of the lot, and caught a glimpse of Ethan through the window. He was already sitting with some young guy in a shiny suit, waving his hands around like he was pitching a timeshare. Ethan met my eyes through the glass and gave me a lazy little wave. I smiled and waved back. Polite as ever. I wondered how long it'd take before he figured out what was coming. A week? Maybe 2? Eventually, he'd need to order inventory, and then he'd find out what too soft really cost. Dad started Morgan Auto 36 years ago with 10 used cars on a gravel lot and a dream. Mom did the bookkeeping while he worked the lot every single day. I joined the family business right after college. Ethan went to business school. He liked to say that's where you learn how to make real money. When Ethan finally joined the dealership 8 years ago, Dad was over the moon. Both his boys working side by side, he thought the legacy was locked in. But Ethan and I? We've always been different. I started at the bottom, washing cars, answering phones, learning what made engines tick. Ethan skipped straight to management, full of big theories about margins and efficiency. Customers aren't your friends, Jake. They're transactions, he'd say. That wasn't Dad's way. We sold cars to people whose kids and grandkids still bought from us. I knew their names, their families, what they did for work. That meant something. Dad never picked a side. Different styles for different folks, he used to say, trying to keep the peace. But I saw the tension building. Ethan wanted speed, more turnover, more pressure, less after-sales service. The first real shift came last Christmas. Dad turned 66, said his back was starting to give out. Over dinner, he finally talked about retiring. I figured he'd suggest a partnership between me and Ethan. Instead, he said, Ethan's got some sharp ideas for modernizing the place. Across the table, Ethan gave me that smug little smirk. Something in my gut went cold. By February, Dad had signed over ownership. Ethan would officially take the reins in June. I was supposed to stay on as senior sales director. That was the plan, anyway. Dad believed Ethan would keep me around, value my experience. But I saw the changes right away. My sales team got split up. My office got downgraded. Access to supplier accounts? Cut off. Just streamlining things, Ethan said when I asked. Then, last month, reps from Sigma Motors came by. They're our biggest supplier. We move more of their cars than any other dealer in the region. They wanted to talk about restructuring their distribution model. Ethan had a meeting at the bank, so I took the Sigma call solo. That's when they made the offer, directly to me. Not to Morgan Auto. To me. We've always valued relationships, Jake. Always have, said Ronald Turner, their VP of sales. I told him I'd give it some thought. A week later, Dad handed Ethan the keys and took off for a long fishing trip in Montana. Couldn't have timed it better. I met Ronald at a quiet coffee shop downtown, away from dealership eyes. He slid a contract across the table, exclusive distribution rights for the Western Territory. You'd control inventory for 17 dealerships, including Morgan Auto, he said. Our best models would go through you first. I looked down at that stack of papers. The offer was solid: better pay, better hours, my own small crew. The catch? It meant walking away from the family legacy, leaving behind what Dad built. Why me? I asked. Ronald leaned back, calm as can be. Dealerships come and go, but what keeps this business alive is trust. And no one's built stronger relationships in our network than you have. I didn't sign that night. Took the papers home and sat with them all weekend. Thought about Dad, about Ethan, about all 16 years I'd poured into that place. Then Friday came. I was heading to Ethan's office with the monthly sales reports when I overheard him on the phone. We'll clean house once Dad's fully out. New sales team, new system. None of that hand-holding crap Jake does, he said, laughing. Jake's decent with customers, but he's outdated, too much like Dad. Once the transition wraps up, we restructure. He didn't know I was standing just outside his door. I had the Sigma contract in my hands. Just listened. My head went quiet. 16 years, weekends, holidays, missed birthdays, and my own brother was just waiting for his moment to cut me loose. I turned around without saying a word, walked back to my office, and signed the contract that afternoon. Scanned it. Emailed it to Ronald. I'm in, I wrote. He called within minutes. Great news. When can you start? Give me a week to wrap up things here. Truth was, I didn't need a week. I needed 3 days, just long enough for the system to process the paperwork and activate my distributor credentials. Just long enough to quietly back up my customer database and contacts. I already knew Ethan would fire me. The only mystery was when. That Monday morning gave me the answer. After walking out of Morgan Auto for the last time, I headed straight to Sigma's office. Ronald had a desk ready. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. 3 people on my team, handling logistics and schedules. A wall map showing every dealership under my territory, little red pins marking each one. The biggest pin? Morgan Auto. Ronald walked me through the inventory system, how allocations worked, how to prioritize supply, and how to control pricing within our margins. I had full authority over what went where, when, and how much it cost. It'll take a few days to get the hang of it, Ronald said. I nodded, eyes on the screen. No rush, he added. But I felt focused. Cold, clear focus I hadn't felt in a long time. I'm a fast learner, I told him. That first week, I dove in, learning the Sigma system, calling up dealerships in my territory, getting my office in shape. I kept my phone close, waiting for the inevitable. It came Thursday afternoon. Morgan Auto's number popped up on my screen. Jake speaking. Jake, it's Brittany from accounting. Her voice was low. Ethan's freaking out. We can't get any inventory confirmed. The system keeps flagging our orders. I leaned back in my chair. Sounds like a supplier issue. That's why I'm calling, she said. Ethan's been trying to reach Sigma, but they won't talk to him directly. You always handled those accounts. I don't work there anymore, Brittany. She went quiet for a beat. I know, she said, but we've got customers waiting. The showroom's half empty. I felt a pang, not for Ethan, but for the team. Good folks. They didn't deserve this mess. Tell Ethan to go through the proper channels, I said. It'll get sorted. 2 hours later, Ethan called me directly. I let it ring to voicemail. His message? Exactly what I expected, demands, not questions. Accused me of messing with the system. Told me to fix it. I waited until the next morning to respond. Morgan Auto, he answered. Ethan, it's Jake. Got your message. About damn time. We need 16 units by Tuesday. The system's blocking everything. I kept my tone calm. Have you spoken to your Sigma representative? They keep bouncing me around. Something about a new distributor approval. I don't have time for this. Just tell me what you did to our account. I didn't touch your account, Ethan. Then why'd everything go sideways the second you left? I paused. Let the silence hang. Maybe, I finally said, you should ask for the regional distributor. That's what I'm trying to do, Ethan snapped. But no one's giving me a straight answer on who's in charge of our territory. I could just picture him in that office, pacing like he always did when he was irritated, hand raking through his hair. It's me, Ethan. Silence. What are you talking about? I'm the new Western Regional Distributor for Sigma. I handle all inventory allocations for your territory now. Another long pause on his end. That's not possible. You can't just. I didn't just anything, I cut in. Sigma came to me last month. Said they value long-term relationships. He was quiet, but I could hear his breath over the line, trying to process it. So what? He finally said. You're holding our inventory hostage? That's illegal. I'll call Dad. It's not illegal, Ethan. It's business. I'm following Sigma's procedures. And Dad's off the grid, remember? That was your call. This is because I fired you, he snapped. Grow up, Jake. No, I said evenly. This is me doing my job. Your dealership will be treated the same as every other one in my region. No special favors. What the hell does that mean? It means your first major order as owner got flagged for review. Standard practice with a change in leadership. I'll have to evaluate your dealership standing. His voice grew tight. And how long's that going to take? I glanced at the calendar on my office wall. 2, maybe 3 weeks. 3 weeks? We'll be running on empty by then. That's the process. He dropped his voice, clearly switching tactics. Look, Jake. I know you're angry, but this is family. Dad built Morgan Auto for both of us. I remember, I said, keeping my tone calm. But like you told me, times are changing. Your strategy was too aggressive. Not enough focus on people. You son of a... I'll review your application personally. Have a good day, Ethan. And I hung up. I sat there for a moment, staring out the office window. I didn't feel victorious. No wave of satisfaction. Just a quiet, empty ache, like something important had cracked beyond repair. My phone lit up again. Ethan. I declined it. Then it rang once more. Dad. This was going to get messy. Jake, it's your father. What the hell's going on? His voice was gruff. Ethan says you're blocking inventory. I closed my eyes, pressed the phone to my ear. I hadn't expected Ethan to reach him in Montana. I'm not blocking anything, Dad. I work for Sigma Motors now. Ethan fired me last week. There was a pause. He what? First day as owner. Said I was too soft. Had security escort me out. I could hear his breathing shift. He told me you quit. Said you got a better offer and just walked. That lie stung. Even now, Ethan was rewriting the truth. I've got the termination paperwork, Dad. 2 months severance. He called it professional courtesy. Dad didn't respond right away. I imagined him sitting out on the porch of that fishing cabin, trying to wrap his head around everything. And now you're with Sigma? I'm their Western regional distributor. Every dealership in the territory, including ours, goes through me. Dad sighed, long and heavy. So you're getting back at him. I'm doing the job I was hired to do, I said. Just like I told Ethan. His order got flagged. That's what happens under new management. His voice dropped into that familiar tone, the one he used when we were kids, and he wasn't mad, just disappointed. This is the business I built for both of you. I know, Dad. I gave it 16 years. And now what? He said. You two tear each other apart? I stood up, walked over to the window. I didn't start this. But you're sure finishing it. I stopped, swallowed the knot in my throat. I'm just trying to move forward. By choking your brother's inventory? I never said I wouldn't approve it. But yeah, I'm delaying it. That's standard. That's policy. He didn't argue. Just said, I'm coming home. This needs to be fixed. There's nothing to fix, Dad. I have a new role. Ethan has what he wanted, full control of Morgan Auto. Dad muttered, doesn't sound like full control to me. I'll be there tomorrow, he said. Don't make any more moves until we talk. Then he hung up. I set the phone on my desk and leaned against the glass, watching the traffic move down below. Dad was going to be disappointed. I knew that. But he didn't know everything. He didn't know Ethan had planned my exit all along. Just then, Ronald tapped on my door and stepped inside. Everything good? I gave him a tired smile. Family stuff, I said. Ronald gave me a nod. Heard Ethan Morgan's been blowing up our main line, demanding priority service. Sounds like him, I said. Ronald stepped inside and quietly shut the door. Jake, he began, when we brought you in, we knew this might get a little awkward. But we also believe loyalty should go both ways. I turned to face him. There's something I didn't tell you earlier, he continued. Your brother came to us 3 months ago. Said once he took over, he wanted to switch suppliers. I felt it like a gut punch. He was planning to drop Sigma? Yeah, Ronald said. Told us our pricing was too high. Our delivery times too slow. I could feel the weight settling in my chest. He was shopping around, Ronald added. Said if we couldn't undercut competitors by 15%, he'd move the entire dealership inventory over to Nova Automotive. Nova, Sigma's biggest rival. cheaper vehicles, bottom-of-the-barrel service, and a reputation for cutting corners. He wouldn't, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew better. Of course he would. It lined up with everything else. Ronald just gave a little shrug. It happens. New leadership comes in, wants to make bold changes, cut costs, put their stamp on things. Dad would have never gone for that, I said. Morgan Otto's been with Sigma since day one. Well, Ronald replied, your dad wasn't going to be in charge anymore. That's why we came to you. We wanted to keep the relationship going, but with the right Morgan. I sat down, trying to process the whole picture. Ethan hadn't just kicked me out. He was tearing apart everything Dad had built. The values, the quality, the trust that took decades to earn. I didn't know, I finally said. Well, now you do. Ronald headed for the door, but paused. For what it's worth, your brother's dealership application is still under review. How long that takes? That's entirely in your hands. Then he left, door clicking shut behind him. I stared at my screen, Ethan's order sitting there, waiting. My hand hovered over the keyboard. Dad was flying in tomorrow, expecting some kind of fix. But I finally understood what was really on the line. That night, I barely slept. All I could see was Dad's face when he'd learned the whole story, not just about me and Ethan, but about what Ethan intended to do with his legacy. By 5 in the morning, I gave up trying to rest, drove into the office, and got to work. The East Coast dealerships were already up and running. I started making calls, pulling records, digging into allocation histories and client notes. By 7, I had what I needed, a full picture of how Sigma's territory functioned and where Morgan Auto ranked. At 11:30 a.m., Dad texted that his flight had landed. I told him to meet me at Hector's Grill at noon, neutral ground, away from Ethan and away from my new office. At 9, I called Brittany in accounting. Jake, thank God, she said right away. Ethan's been a nightmare. We've got an empty showroom. I need a favor, I said. Last 3 years of sales records and customer satisfaction reports. Can you send them to my personal email? She hesitated. Ethan locked everything down. Says it's proprietary now. Brittany, you've been there 12 years. You know what Dad built. I'm trying to protect that. There was a pause on the other end. Give me an hour, she finally said. By 10, the spreadsheets hit my inbox. And just like I suspected, they told the story. Our highest customer satisfaction and most repeat business came from the same models Ethan planned to cut under Nova's supply deal. At 11:30, I printed out everything and drove to Hector's. Dad was already sitting at a table, looking older than I remembered and far more tired. We both ordered coffee, but neither of us touched it. Your brother's been telling me a very different version of things, Dad said, getting straight to the point. I figured, I replied, and slid the termination paperwork across the table. He read it, and his face darkened. This doesn't sound like Ethan, doesn't it? I said, pushing over Brittany's email, complete with the Nova Automotive quotes Ethan had requested. Dad looked through the documents, confused. What am I looking at? Ethan's plan to ditch Sigma and move everything to Nova. Lower costs, quick profits. Dad's hands clenched the pages. These are dated before I signed over ownership. He was planning this the whole time. Fire me. Change suppliers. Flip the whole structure. All behind your back. But Nova? Dad muttered. Cheaper cars, half the warranty, support that's a joke. Exactly what you spent your career avoiding. He dropped the pages onto the table and rubbed his eyes. I don't get it. Why would he do this? Because it makes the numbers look great, for a while. Higher margins, faster turnover, flashy reports. Enough to build a reputation as the guy who turned things around. Then he flips the business to a dealership chain and moves on, I said. Dad stared at me. He'd sell Morgan Auto? I gave a small nod. That's my guess. Check the last page. Those are inquiries for a business valuation from 3 different auto conglomerates. He went quiet, eyes scanning the documents. After a long pause, he looked up. And now you're with Sigma. They came to me, Dad. They knew what Ethan was planning. So what now? He asked, voice rough. You get back at him by choking the business I built from nothing? That hit hard, but I was ready. I pulled out another folder. I'm not trying to punish anyone, I said, opening it. I'm trying to protect what you built. Inside was the plan I'd stayed up all night preparing. Morgan Auto, repositioned as a premium Sigma dealership. Exclusive inventory. First priority shipments. Tailored service packages. Everything Ethan fought against, except with higher margins and loyal customers who kept coming back. Dad flipped through the pages. These projections legit? I've been tracking the numbers for years. Our best returns always came from trust and loyalty, not bargain basement pricing. Ethan's not going to go along with this. No, I said. He won't. Dad looked up at me. Then what's the point? The point, I said, is you still own the property. The land. The building. Ethan only owns the business. I watched the realization click in his eyes. You want me to evict my own son? I want you to give him a choice, I said. Run Morgan Auto the right way, our way, or sell his share back to us. He keeps his license, we keep the name and the legacy. Us. Dad asked. You and me. I held his gaze. Partners. Dad leaned back in his chair like he was seeing me for the first time. And if I don't go for it? Then I approve his inventory order today. I walk away. Let him run things however he wants. Your call. He slowly shook his head. Your brother really didn't see you coming. I didn't say anything. Just waited. Finally, Dad picked up his phone. I need to call Ethan. No, I said. Instead, Dad dialed someone else. Cheryl, it's Lawrence Morgan. I need you to pull the lease paperwork on the dealership property. Today. He looked right at me. I think it's time to revisit some terms with our tenant. 2 days later, the three of us sat in the dealership conference room, me, Dad, Ethan, and Cheryl, Dad's longtime attorney. No one said a word as she laid out 3 documents on the table. Option 1, she began, sliding the first page toward Ethan. You continue as owner of Morgan Auto, but under a new lease agreement with clear operational requirements, including keeping Sigma Motors as your exclusive supplier. Ethan's jaw clenched. He didn't touch the paper. Option 2, she said, pushing the second sheet forward, you sell your share of the business back to your father and brother at fair market value, adjusted for recent losses due to the inventory freeze. Ethan shot me a glare. This is extortion. This is business, I said, using his own words against him. Option 3, Cheryl continued calmly, you keep ownership, but relocate the business. The lease on this property will be terminated in 30 days. Ethan turned to Dad. You'd really do this? To your own son? Dad looked him dead in the eye. You fired your brother without even calling me. You lied about it. And you planned to dismantle everything I spent 40 years building. So yes, I would. Ethan stood, pacing. This is nuts. All because I tried to modernize things? No, Dad said softly. All because you forgot what made us different. The room fell quiet. Ethan stared out the window at the half-empty lot. After a while, he turned back. How much? He asked. Fair market value, I said. You'll walk away with enough to start fresh. He laughed bitterly. You've been planning this the whole time. No, I said. But I saw a path forward when you backed me into a corner. Ethan looked between the two of us, then down at the document. Without another word, he picked up the pen and signed. No yelling. No drama. Just the sound of pen on paper closing one chapter and opening the next. Then he left, quietly. Never looked back. 6 months later, I stood inside the new Morgan Auto, now Morgan & Son. The showroom was full again, not just with cars, but with people. Weekend traffic was steady. The service department booked 3 weeks out. Dad came in part-time now. Mostly shook hands, swapped stories with longtime customers. He seemed lighter, like the weight he'd been carrying was finally gone. We hadn't heard from Ethan. Last I heard, he'd moved to San Diego, working with a big dealer group. Ronald from Sigma dropped by one afternoon, looking around the refreshed space. Place looks great, Jake, he said. Numbers holding up? Better than before, I told him. Our premium models are flying off the lot. He nodded. Told you, relationships matter. My dad said that, I corrected him. Later, I stepped outside and saw Dad showing a young couple their first family SUV. He handed them his card and told them to call him directly, cell phone and all. Some things don't change. And they shouldn't. That evening, as we locked up, Dad lingered in the showroom, staring at the new sign above the doors. You know, he said, I always figured one day it'd be Morgan & Son. I stayed quiet. I was wrong about Ethan, he said. Then, after a pause, but I was wrong about you too. How's that? I asked. I thought your way was soft, he said. Turns out it was the strong way all along. We walked to our cars. At his door, he stopped and looked back at me. You could have destroyed him, you know, cut him off completely. Wouldn't have been right, I said. He nodded. That's why you're sitting here and he's not. I watched him drive away, then turned to look at the building. Our building. Not built on resentment or revenge, but on the same thing it always had been. Doing right by people. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard.